Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creation Myths. Before I go any further, first thing I always start with, we're live. So, audio and video, chat, just let me know if it's all looking and sounding okay. And if it's not, let me know so I can fix stuff. Always get that out of the way. It seems okay on my end, but you never know. So tonight we are going to have a really fun show tonight. We don't have any specific science topic to talk about tonight. Tonight is much more of a meta discussion. And joining me tonight, I'm really excited. The perfect person to have this conversation with, Maya Adkisson, is here. Her channel is linked down below. So the first thing I want everybody to do is click on that link. It's in the description. It's at Maya Adkisson. Click on that link in the description, go to her channel and hit subscribe, because she does one of my favorite shows on YouTube, Bad Science Sunday, which I can't always catch it every Sunday, but I try. And it's always really fun and I always learn something. Or if it's a physics topic like it was last week, my brain melts out of my ears. But, one way or the other.
Yeah, I did want to talk about that too, because I saw you melting away over
Yeah.
there.
Leo melted. Yeah, a few days ago, Leo melted my brain. My brain
Leo,
was leaking out of my ears, talking about event horizons and how you can't go out of the black hole because there's only one direction once again, brain melted out of my ears. It was
Leo
great.
has a tendency to do that. Yeah.
It was great. So right now, looking at Maya's channel right now, there are 841 subscribers. If you are watching this, click that button. Let's get that number higher. I want to see that number hit 4 digits soon. Come on, everybody. I know we can do it. So, Maya, before we go any further, tell everybody a little bit about what you do, either in general or on YouTube specifically, whatever you want to talk about. Just tell everybody about yourself, and then we'll get into our topic for tonight.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maya. You can find me on my channel. I always have problems with this, at Maya Adkisson. And so I do a number of things. I try to do I used to try to do social Saturdays where we talked about more political things or things that weren't really being focused on in the community, and people wanted to kind of get it out. And now I've mainly been kind of surfing to other channels to do that. And so I guess I haven't felt the need. When I started doing it, there was definitely something missing. Everybody, I call it the skeptic community because that's how I made it here. But a lot of atheists in the skeptic community, not complaining, but I feel like I've gotten my fill of atheist content. So, and there's a lot of other things going on. I'm a little bit of a nerd at heart. So I love watching you. I love learning. I love, and I love your passion, when listening to, a lot of the other scientists in the community, just talk passionately, like the excitement. I love seeing the joy in people's eyes when they're just like, oh my God, I get to tangent about the thing I love most in the world. And I don't know. I love it. I feel like there's only so many apologetics out there, which means there can only be so many counter apologetics out there. And I don't know. I just got bored. So when I was thinking about doing my channel, I already knew that I wasn't trying to do anything in the counter apologetics realm. I, being Black and a woman, and coming fresh off of the Trump presidency, a lot of social issues are really near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to kind of engage with that but I know a lot of it is really overwhelming. And a lot of it for the people that are in the community people have a hard time engaging with the same thing over and over and over again. It's one thing if it's just all right, we're going to talk about women's issues this week, and they may engage with you for 1 week or, whatever, but doing it week after week after week after week, I think for the guys, it's just like, well, this is a woman's show, so I'll let the little ladies talk, or, whatever the topic is, whether I do notice it too, like in the trans, we have a sizable trans community. And, I do see the numbers where they start, with big numbers, and people are like, all right, got it. I'm, going over
Mhm.
here now to whatever my thing is that I used to watch before you came on. So I started my channel for a couple of reasons. One, I was going through a divorce, and I was just tired of like feeling sorry for myself, and I needed another outlet, something to kind of that was fun for me, and that I could get my mind off of, my problems. Another was I found Dr. Tapioca Weasel skulking around Discord, mad because he kept getting kicked out of Flurf chats. And I'm like, you're too like you're too smart. Like you're not gonna blend with idiots. Like just stop doing this. And I was like, there are other things in the world besides flat Earth videos. It's like, have you seen ghost videos? Ghosts will make you believe in God because they are a gift from the baby Jesus. So my very first stream with him was we were debunking ghost videos, and I don't know, I had fun. I had a lot of fun. I guess he had a lot of fun because he was like, you want to do this next week? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? We did I think 2 things of ghost videos, 2 things of cryptids, and for a couple of weeks it was just kind of bothering me. I'm like, you have a PhD physicist on your channel every week, and it felt like it should be a sin. It's like he is just wasting himself, like, laughing about like cryptids, which, I mean, there are things that we can do with cryptid videos, but I don't know. I tend to be pretty cognizant about what I'm putting out into the world, and I felt like, yeah, this is a crime against nature. I should be utilizing him. So then we started going more into like the science debunking realm, and that is how Bad Science Sunday came into fruition. And we've been doing that, well, almost every Sunday for a year and a half now. So Bad Science Sunday is where we look at pseudoscience, and I say that loosely because we've looked at bad physics, psychology, we've looked at bad computer science, bad political science, bad biology, and
Anything, yeah.
yeah, it gets wild. There's not a bad science genre. We're looking for bad ideas to debunk, and we do, we don't do a drinking game, but we do drink and laugh at people. And a couple of people told me that it's their favorite show, and for me that is so wild because I'm just laughing with my friends in the community about an idiot. And I mean, it's a little bit more than that, but I see a lot of people doing what I do, like Logics or Sick. I could probably go on and on, but to say that, out of all of these people who do this great content, that I would be their favorite, is humbling, and I feel honored.
Well, I have a lot of shows that I enjoy.
No, I'm not
Bad
saying
Science
like,
Sunday,
of like on,
one of
I'm
one
not sure I can compete with Dr.
one of
but
my
in my
weekly
genre.
watches, I will say for everybody, one of my weekly watches is like if there's Sunday night and like I don't have stuff to do, like I'm hopping on Bad Sign Sunday. That's a great way to just like ease my way into the work
Mhm.
week. And I recommend that one for everybody. I want to kind of first thing I want to say is just like this approach that Maya just described, where it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, little all these different topics. It's exactly what you said, I think, is that if you get kind of in, a pigeonhole, right? Now that's your thing and you're that thing person. And then if
Mhm.
somebody dives really into that, a lot of these interests have a really finite lifespan. So then people dive into it, but then 6 months, a year, 2 years later, then they kind of lose interest in it and then they move on
Right.
somewhere else. The beauty
Exactly.
of Bad Science Sunday is that it's not going to happen
No.
because we're going to jump around across all different
Oh, I
topics.
dare you to get bored.
It's like you said, it's about bad ideas, right? We're
Right.
just going to talk about bad ideas. And it's not just, I mean, I'm the anti-creationist genetics guy. Like that is a narrow lane, right? That is either you're in or you're super not in. And it's like, that's what it is. That's not what you're doing. You're
No.
doing, I really think this. You're doing a much more important thing because you're pointing out one of the big things that you see. If you watch a bunch of Bad Science Sunday, one of the big things that you see is whether you're talking about like climate change stuff or
Mhm.
anti-vax stuff or like flat earth stuff or paranormal stuff or whatever it is, the structure of the bad ideas and the way people fall into the traps is very much the same across all
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
So kind of the good deed, the public service that you're providing is showing people like, here are the pitfalls, here's how to avoid the pitfalls. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's creationism, flat earth, or climate change denial, or whatever it is, the rules are basically the same, even though the
Mhm.
content is different. And
Yeah.
like, I love it because I'll hop on and whatever the topic is, it could be some like last weekend, some bonkers physics thing that like I didn't even know this was like a corner of the internet. And now,
Yeah.
like if I hear it, I go, oh, I remember what's weird. Like I remember why that's wrong. Yeah, okay. And like I'm not a physicist. I don't understand that kind of physics, but I
Nor do I.
get just enough of it to
Mhm.
understand like, okay, that's a bad
Right.
idea. I see what the error is there.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
now
And
I'm better equipped to spread that when I see it. Right. It's
or
a
or yeah,
vaccination.
or just when you see it to be like, "Hey, that's propaganda."
Hmm.
And to avoid, going down that rabbit hole. And yeah, I didn't know either. I know we were heavily on and I had to do something with cosmology and I am a cosmology idiot. So, I went to Voyager, which is one of my old faithfuls. They have an aversion to the truth. And I threw it at my co-host and I'm like, "Is this anything?" He's like, "Oh no, this is gold. We're definitely doing this."
There you go.
Um, so yeah, I learned a lot too. There's a lot. I don't think I felt overwhelmed. I understood what they were talking about, but um, it was interesting because what that video was doing is what a lot of s- scientism videos do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
This like pop
they
sci kind of vaguely, relate. Oh, here's this finding. Let's put it through.
yeah,
I think you used
and
the right word a minute
they
ago.
and I don't know if you were there, but I was showing the setup because Tap and Leo were saying, that's true, but I wonder where he's going with it. And I'm like, okay, here's where he's going with it.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to tell you this true thing. I'm going to tell you this true thing. And therefore, that makes this non sequitur completely true. And yeah, that's exactly what happened.
That is, I'm so glad you just structured it like that because that is so much of what you see across all of these different things, right? You
Hmm.
talk about creationism, right? Natural selection can't create new structures. That's true. But there's a bunch of other mechanisms that do, but we're just going to pretend those don't exist.
Right.
This vaccine doesn't protect 100% against this virus. That's true, but it makes you 80% less likely to get infected, right?
Right.
Like you
Right.
start with that teeny little bit of truth, but then shoot off in this direction. And you used, I think, a really important word a few minutes ago, propaganda. That is
Yes.
like the key thing. So
Yes.
much of this stuff that we're dealing with, it's pretending to be science communication. It's
Hmm.
pretending to try to inform or teach the viewer something. What it actually is propaganda.
Oh, 100%, especially with what you do with creationism, young earth, and climate change denial. It's all propaganda to try to, and it drives me nuts. Having been raised Catholic, and the nuns were just like, no, evolution is real. And the people who think that it's not are silly. They think the Bible says it. And being from the faith that wrote the book, well, half of it, it's just that they're laughing at you. It speaks volumes. Um, And I think young Earth is what, like 100 years old or something like that. It's
It's always been kind of a weird fringy thing,
mhm,
but as like a science, right? Because it's the kind of thing where I mean, you had what was it? Bishop of Usher did the with the so and so begat so and so blah 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 blah. You do
mhm,
the father son things and you work
yeah,
backwards with the years, but that was it wasn't really something that like I mean, science didn't even really exist as a field, right? So, but once you
right,
had
right.
geologists start, it was really geologists that started looking at stuff. Be like,
Mhm.
I don't know about that. And like, I remember one of the earlier guys to start doing this was like, I think it's actually 70,000 years old. Everyone was like, whoa, 70,000. I don't know how are we doing that? I thought it was only 8,000 or whatever. And since then, it's like been a small thing, but it became a political project, right, in the 20th century.
Yeah.
As the modern form of young Earth creationism, creation science branding.
Mhm.
That is a very decades old, very much a political project framed around a scientific idea,
Yeah,
right?
well, they're
That's
doing
the
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no. Go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
No, yeah, and they're doing 2 things there. One, they're trying to level actual science by calling it a religion. And so there's a bunch of religions out there. So if science is just a religion, then we can treat it just like we do Islam or Buddhism or any other things. We can just disregard it. Um, but a lot of it is like information. It's really hard to refute. So then you have them trying to create their own science, which is kind of weird.
Oh,
Um,
their own vocabulary. It has
yeah.
this all and this
Yeah.
and again, going back to something we touched on a few minutes ago, is that this is true across all of these different things, right? You've got
Mhm,
your creationist vocabulary, you've got your flat earth vocabulary, you've got
mhm.
your anti-vax, your climate change deniers. They all have their own jargon,
Yeah.
which
It's
serves
by
two
design.
purposes, I think. It
Yeah.
one, it makes it sound all fancy and sciency, right? Oh, I've got technical words, but it also serves as a bulwark against people arguing against it because before you
Mhm,
can even make the counter argument, you have to know the lingo. And if you
mhm.
don't know the technical terms, then you're going to get tripped up just because you don't know what the words mean. And you're going to look silly if you try to debate a creationist and you don't know what their silly creation specific words mean, then that's going to not look good.
Yeah, and then also though, by doing that, it stops people from finding the truth when they're doing a simple Google
Mm,
search.
yep.
Because
You look for
if you were looking for these terms, you're only going to be shoehorned into
yep,
this one area.
exactly.
And yeah, it's kind of
So
sinister when you think about it.
yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. I want to just point something out for everybody because this is kind of the philosophy, I think, underlying your channel, underlying my channel, underlying a lot of people here hanging out in chat. Hi, everybody. It's pleasure to see all of you here. I love hanging out with you
Yeah,
all.
love all of
Um,
you.
there was for a long time in the scientific community, in the skeptical community, however you want to define that, parts of the skeptical community we don't really talk about anymore because they got super racist and they're just over there now. But like it's been kind of for a long time, there's been this idea that you ignore the unserious pseudoscientists, right? You don't platform them, you don't
Right.
engage with them, and they'll just go away. And whether it's, the internet allows that to not be I think it's not just an internet thing. I think just in general, what we've learned, whether there's internet or not, is that that's not going to happen. I mean, a lot of this stuff predates the internet.
Yes.
They're not just going to go away. And if you don't engage
No.
with it, they're just going to put their ideas out there unchallenged.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's bad.
we've seen that a lot recently where, you know, there's been a really big push that, oh, you can't be racist. Racism is bad. So if you're racist, that makes you a bad person. So we're just not going to talk about race in public. But these conversations were still happening in private. Um, and then you have, Donald Trump coming along and just saying, "Hey, no, and everybody's just, hey, we're still here." And
Permission
now we
structure.
have, yeah, permission to be racist in public. So it never went away.
Mhm.
It just came out of like you know, common. It wasn't polite. What do you call it? Out of polite society, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
But it
under the
never, yeah, and it
radar.
never went. Yeah,
And then they rebranded, right? There was, remember, you probably remember, a bunch of people probably remember the 2016, 2017, like, you know, oh, look at Richard Spencer. He doesn't have swastika tattoos. He's a serious guy.
it's
He's
a
not
whole
a,
suit tie.
right. Yeah. He wears a suit and tie. He's not like a do a genocide Nazi. He's a peaceful ethnic cleansing Nazi who is well spoken. And like, that was bananas that we spent, like, that was a year's worth of like what this Discord was about, instead of like the ideas that these people were promoting. It was
Right.
about the aesthetics of the whole thing, and that
Yeah.
allowed them to get back openly just being open bigots, and everyone was just like, okay, I guess that's part of the political spectrum
Yeah,
now,
you
and I
can be a
don't know
total
what
bigot as
happened.
long as you're nice and don't use
Yeah.
swear words.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
all very, very superficial. And as long as you superficially were part of
Mhm.
polite society, it didn't actually matter what the substance of your ideas were. It
Right.
was very, that period of time broke my brain, and I've never recovered from like that. Just like what happened there.
Well,
But
there's a
that's
lot of us
actually,
who knew that that was always the America,
yeah,
but, I know that for people who had the ability to not engage in it, it could seem very jarring. But, yeah, I mean, it is really important, I think, kind of going back to what you were saying, that we are confronting them. And I think, there's a huge argument in the community about how to platform bad
yeah.
ideas.
And I've come around on this because a couple years ago, I was like, when our I think you're familiar with good old Kent down in
Yeah.
Alabama, Kent Hovind,
Yeah.
and a few years ago when he had his legal troubles crop back up, I was like, this is ridiculous. We got to stop. We got to like,
Right.
we should
Yeah.
just
A
boycott
lot of
Kent,
people have said that
boycott the
about Kent.
channels. Like, and here's the thing: I tried really hard to make that happen, and you know what? It didn't work. So you know what? Now I think the approach is to just show that he is stupid and unserious. I think the best thing to do is just be like, Kent, you don't know any of the words that you're using. You are not serious about this. You don't understand the things that you are talking about. You sound stupid because you are. And like, I'm going to laugh at you when you say like how biology works and it's like this bananas thing. I'm just going to laugh at you. And
I
everyone's
mean,
going to see me laughing at you because this is stupid. And like my freshman students could explain exactly why you're wrong here. This is dumb.
a freshman in high school, though, right?
No, this is college. But it could be.
I'm just thinking freshman in high
I
school.
mean,
But
honestly,
yeah,
you could.
he's supposed
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. If
He's
you
not
take
a.
bio,
He's not a serious person.
right. And that's the big idea, which finally, after, it's 20 minutes, we're getting there. What we're taught, I titled this was not just refuting misinformation, but ridiculing
Mhm.
misinformation. And that is really kind of where I'm coming down as a really important part of the puzzle, right? So you said before, like, you're hanging out with your friends, having a drink, you're laughing at these people who are
Mhm.
got these bonkers ideas out there, and like, are they seriously saying these things in public? This is ridiculous. And you have on experts that can say, like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Why would
Right.
anybody think this makes sense?
Right.
But the key thing is, like, we're belittling them. We're
Yes.
making them look small and silly
Yes.
because that takes away their power.
Right. Thank
Like,
you. Thank
that's
you.
the thing we need to do, right? It's
Mhm.
it's so much of this is about like, I have access to some, forbidden knowledge that they
Yeah.
don't want you to have access to, right? There's, oh,
Mhm.
I'm being censored. There's a cure for cancer, but
Oh
their
my god.
pharmaceutical companies are
I
hiding
can't
it, but
tell you
whatever it is.
how many videos come up in my feed, like, "Watch this before they take it down."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And by like being like, you see how stupid this is? Like, this is dumb. Like, do you hear what this person is saying? And just like hanging out and having a few drinks and like pointing out just how unserious it all is a better approach to it than pointing out that it's dangerous and scary.
Right,
Like,
and you know what? I'm gonna let you get to your super chat, and
oh,
I
thank
wanna.
you. Thank I am a professional. We have a super chat for $4.99. Thank you from Rosina Gently Used Keller. Knowing the definitions of words you are using, that's communism.
Indeed.
When you're
Dictionary
right, you're right.
definition.
That's part of it. It's that, and also controlling the means of production, but also knowing the definitions of words. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Seriously,
also leading the bridge.
The actual Marxists love to argue about jargon. It's real, like, don't get in the middle of like actual communists arguing with each other. It's really funny, as I recall from college.
Sound hilarious.
It's hard to find that many in the same place unless you're really looking for them. But if you happen upon a group of,
you should come out to DC. But yeah, I think when you're talking about, let's say, laughing at Nazis, right? Which I am pro.
Absolutely.
And yeah, obviously it's what I do on my show. I think there's, you have to be very aware of your audience. And I had this discussion with Mark Reed on my show because he was thinking about bringing on, like, having a discussion with Tangelo. And I'm just like, for what's the point of that? I think that as a content creator, it's really important to understand what it is you're doing. I think it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not juvenile, but like, or immature. What?
Naive.
Yeah. I mean, to think that, I can hit the go live button and things will work out. And I think it's, sorry, I've been like literally running around all day and simple words are not coming to mind.
That's okay. I've been there.
Now I'm thinking of something like not malpractice, but like
doing a disservice to your audience.
To the world though too, right? Because this video is up forever.
Yeah. The internet never forgets, right? So
when you are going to bring somebody on, you need to know, like, I think it's important as a streamer to understand your purpose and your goals and what it is you hope to do, and to try to stay in line with that. And that's not trying to tell anybody how to, run their channels or anything like that. I'm just asking everyone to be cognizant of what it is that they're putting out in the world, because it does have cyclical effects. So it's one thing to, okay, I want to bring this person on because they are they're going to be great for views, but what am I doing to my community?
Right.
Like, that is really big to me. Is this person going to cause damage or trauma or, or like some kind of traumatic relived experience for anyone in my community? Is this person going to come in and, there's a person that when I didn't stream, I said we were taking a summer break, but there's actually just someone that I didn't want to platform. And I was like, you know what, I've been streaming all year and I'm just going to take a week off.
Take a break.
Because I didn't trust that they would not misspeak. And it's one thing when it happens to a person in one of my videos, but it's another thing when my own guest is doing this, which is why I don't let just anyone on. I do try to have other creators on, because it's really hard to hide who you are when you've, have like a year plus of content that, the world can see. And there are, but that aside, what am I doing with this? What is it I hope to do? Is there a net gain? And I don't see the point of bringing on someone like a Tangelo. He doesn't have enough influence to affect anything. Now, when we're talking about Ken Hovind, I think it's very different, because he is still influential with a sizable number of people. I don't think it's beneficial to have him on our channels. I don't see the point in that, because at that point, we're introducing a toxic person to our community. What we need to do is go to his community. And I know a lot of people hate MDD. I refuse to give them views. So I'm with you there. However,
yes.
It's like I've said to people who insist on going back there, we need people from our community in MDD. Somebody has to challenge Witsit. who's going to have his whole community over there, and they need to hear both sides. Like, even I'm
Yeah.
not expecting to like change minds overnight. Somebody's got to plant those seeds. Somebody has to challenge the narrative, because you go into there and it's just a bunch of idiots jacking each other off, and
Basically, yeah.
tightening these bonds, these neural connections, and they're not learning anything. They have to hear the other side at some point. And I say that because I was one of those idiots. I don't know. I was into flat Earth for about maybe a week, and I don't know. I When you're listening to flat earthers, it's just, they don't know this and they don't know that, and what about this, huh? And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why don't we think that? Why do we think something else? And I came over to YouTube, and I was looking at a debate between, I don't know, somebody and somebody else. And when you see the flat earther against like an actual scientist, that's when you like that, for me at least, that's when it was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
the earth is visibly round. What was I thinking?
Take a picture. Right. Well, the
you know,
pictures are
it,
fake. NASA faked the pictures. Yada yada yada. Right. It's the whole.
well, I mean, yeah, and I actually didn't get to any of those, because I never got into the fake moon landing stuff.
That's
But
another. Yeah. That's a
um
whole other one. Yep.
it was like these people were, I'm an engineer and I'm telling you that, planes don't fly in this pattern. It would have to be like this, or else they'd run out of fuel, and da 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 da. And and I'm like,
Always, and it's can I just say it's always engineers. For anyone
yeah,
who
it's
doesn't
always
know about it,
engineers.
there's this thing called the Salem hypothesis, and there's two forms of the Salem hypothesis. There's the weak form, which is that if you have somebody with a technical degree of some kind, in a STEM field, and they are believing or promoting some kind of pseudoscience, they're likely to be an engineer. And then the
Yeah.
strong form of the Salem hypothesis is that having a degree in engineering predisposes one to buy into pseudoscience.
Hmm.
I don't know if I buy that
Interesting.
second one, but the first
Yeah.
one is like empirically true. The weak
Yeah,
form
no,
is like,
yeah, it was always an
yeah,
engineer. You're right. And I was
always
like, wow, I'm
engineers.
not an engineer. And my dad
Engineer,
was a civil engineer, so I did have, a lot of respect for him. He was always doing like a lot of math, and like, well, they would know more than me, because they have all this math in their head, and I've never even looked into this. So, okay. Um, but I mean, it doesn't even take all of that to debunk it. But yeah, you do see the people like with the math saying, okay, according to you, da 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 da, and like all these facts, and then the first saying, no, and in a debate, it was just very clear that somebody was bringing facts and somebody was bringing nonsense, and it all fell apart for me. And that happened to me with a number of things, because, well, yeah, when I deconverted, it was kind of traumatic, and so I'm just like, is the sky even blue? Like, what's going on? So everything that I was told I wasn't supposed to believe, I dove into it. And then, yeah, I started dismantling one by one. But
yeah,
it was, for me personally, it was the debates. It was seeing the pseudoscience side up against a scientist. And where when putting them side by side, that it was just irrefutable.
and there has to
And
be somebody in that room willing to do that in order for that
yeah,
to happen.
thank
And
you. Thank
and
you. And if
that's
we shun them, I,
right. And
yeah.
that's where it gets really tricky. Like MDD is such a good example of this, right? Because like MDD very famously has hosted Richard Spencer, Nick Fuentes, Laura Southern. Like, I am not going to go on a
Mhm.
platform that
Mm-mm.
hosts literal, honest to God Nazis. Like, I'm just not going to
Right.
do it. Like,
Yeah.
there's the for
Won't
those
even
of you
give
that
them my
don't,
view.
does I don't know Maya if you know this allegory or if anybody in chat knows the allegory, but there's the allegory of the Nazi bar. And
Okay.
you know the Nazi bar?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, but make tell
yeah,
yeah,
so
tell
the story of the Nazi bar is this. This is like a little thing on Twitter or Reddit or something. The screenshot goes around, and basically a guy saying how he went into a bar, real like rundown kind of hole in the wall place, and he's sitting down, and the bartender's not ignoring him, and it's just hanging out. Guy walks in, bartender immediately says, "Out," like right now, out. And the guy's like, "What? I didn't do." The bartender's like, "Get out right now," and like so the guy's got to leave. And so the guy sitting at the bar telling the story is like, what was up with that? And the bartender says, oh, you couldn't see, but he had a Nazi symbol under his vest. And you can't let even one of them in, because what happens is one guy comes in and he's quiet, doesn't make a mess. So you're like, all right, it's fine. We'll just leave that one guy. And then he brings one or two of his friends and they don't cause a problem. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Then they start bringing their friends, and even the second level friends, they don't cause any problems. Now there's like 6 or 8 of them sitting there. Other people walking in start to see those guys and they decide to go somewhere else. So over time, everyone starts bringing their friends, and then the not Nazis stop coming to your bar. And even though the Nazis never caused a problem, all of a sudden you have a Nazi bar. Yeah. So the rule is, the moral of the story is, you can't let a single one in, even if they're the dapper Nazi, even if they have a nice haircut and wear a suit and tie. No Nazis, period. Not even up for debate, right? So that's the allegory of the Nazi bar. And MDD has become the Nazi bar, right? That's what happened. And I'm not going to hang out in a Nazi bar.
Right. I mean, it's just even questionable, like someone who, I mean, I'm not saying that Lauren Southern and, all those other idiots shouldn't be confronted, but the way it's been done is, I can't.
It's just it's, there's a big difference between I'm going to have, I've hosted a lot of creationists on my channel, professional creationists, people who, my honest to God opinion is that they spent an hour lying through their teeth at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm going to have them on, because going back to what you said a few minutes ago, talking about what's the value for your audience? What are we accomplishing with this, right? I can sit down and have that conversation, and we're going to poke and prod, and I'm going to show that they can't actually defend their own ideas. They can't define the words that they invented for their silly thing. And then people watch that, and it's like you described a few minutes ago, you put the two ideas side by side and actually have them duke it out. It's not complicated what's going on here. The problem becomes when, Richard Spencer is on one end of the spectrum, right? Some random creationist is on the other end of the spectrum. Right in the middle, where it starts to get really fuzzy, is a guy like Kent Hovind, right? Because not only is he convicted felon, domestic abuser, young earth creationist, also he doesn't make this a thing on his channel, but he also thinks we should stone the gays, right? He is genuinely a really bad person who wants to eliminate a lot of the population.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to give him airtime or appear on the same channel that he appears on? I've gone back and forth on that a lot. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And like I said, the way I fall on it is, if you go to his channel, I think it's worth it to plant seeds. You may even change one mind. And one mind, I think planting seeds, and a lot of people, they're just like, I can't talk to you. You won't change your mind and completely believe what I believe in one conversation. It's not going to happen.
I agree. And I think that's a misunderstanding of the point. Every conversation I go into with these people, whether it's on my channel or elsewhere, I'm having all of a debate, right? I'm not trying to convince the person I'm debating.
No,
that's never going to happen. No.
Never going to happen.
My entire attention is focused on the audience. And I spotlight it. I'll say hey, everybody, I want to point out for you what this person just did. Here's the little rhetorical trick they just did. I'm going to point that out for you before we go any further, right? It's my, I don't care. I'm not going to get them to, believe anything I say. It's not the point. The point is that audience, and specifically a lot of what I, whether consciously or not, have what I feel like I can accomplish when I have these conversations is I can get the person to say something that is not openly wrong, because they say a ton of things that are factually obviously incorrect. But if I can get them to say something that's just silly and kind of dumb, then I can be
contradictory.
You just, what? You really just said that? Is that what you think? And then everyone goes, oh, that's a completely unserious person. And that shatters the facade more than a mountain of data, right?
Right.
Because they'll claim they have their own data. So then it's just mine versus yours. But if you say something that's just makes everyone go, did you really just say that? That does a lot more of that work. And that might be 10 seconds out of an
Mhm.
hour-long conversation. But those are the 10 seconds that are going to matter in terms of, like you said, planting seeds, getting people to start thinking, hey, wait a minute, should I buy that? Because that sounded really silly to me.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'll let you get to your super chat.
Yes, thank you. Nope, not that one. There it is. Again, signed a gently used Keller for $4.99. Kent Hovind is also an anti-Semite, subtly sometimes, overtly other times. Yeah, there's some videos out there where it's super overt. He is not subtle about it. It's really bad. And that goes
he's
along.
also like overtly sexist.
Yeah. Well, that gets into the thing of like kind of the broader what are we doing and why are we doing it conversation, because all of this stuff goes together, right? And anti-Semitism specifically is like, it's the conspiracy theory. It's the conspiracy theory behind all the other conspiracy theories.
Right.
So we're talking about flat earth. We're talking about, the pharmaceutical companies like hiding the cure for cancer. At the end of the day, who is they? We all know who it is, right? It's the Jews, right? It's capital T, capital J, the Jews that are behind all of this. Who's keeping the creationists out of the science classroom and preventing them from publishing their papers? It's them, right? That's like, so when we're pushing back on these things, whether it's silly flat earth stuff, anti-vax stuff, whatever it is, we're also pushing back on these other things because it's all bricks in the same wall. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean oh God,
they
usually it's anti-Semitic, but a lot of times it's they don't know. Like a lot of times they don't know. It could be big pharma or whatever. I was watching a show and he was talking about like big geology, and I'm like, uh-oh. You there?
I don't know if y'all can hear me, but
Ooh, you kind of roboting
because it's had a bad storm roll through. I think it's
Oh yeah, I had a bad storm 2 weeks ago, and it what do you call it? Kicked me off completely, like 3 times on my own stream. It's like rude.
Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
The sound. Oh, now you just came back all clear.
Oh, okay, good.
All right, now we're back. I don't know what happened there. Hang on. All right, hopefully we're good. Yeah, I had a as probably 15 or so minutes into the conversation, it just ended a couple minutes ago. I had a big thunderstorm roll through, and the whole time I can hear it like going out the window right there. I'm like, really hope my power doesn't go out, because that would be unfortunate timing for all of this.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about the I mean, when you're talking about people with conspiracy theories, like it's never just one. Like if you believe one, you say believe them all, but like I mean, it's rare. And even when looking at psychologists that study conspiracy theorists for a living, they even say it's just like it's rare to find a person that believes in just one. Like usually, and so the understanding is that there's a conspiracy mindset that is kind of bred out of like the way that we form neuropaths. And we see this, I forget what it's called, but it's like with the gamblers, if you study them, they actually will have like, especially like card players, they start to see patterns. They're like more prone to see patterns than non-gamblers. And so with conspiracy theorists, you kind of see like similar patterns of pattern seeking. So if I'm prone, like if I like this and I get into it, I've just kind of enforced this kind of line of thinking. And so now I'm looking for it. I'm looking for that adrenaline rush or the dopamine hit. And so I keep doing, oh, hey, ice cream. Speaking of dopamine hits.
There you go.
Thanks, son. that, and I get rewarded. My brain rewards me every time I make those connections and I do
Right.
those
Yeah.
things. So a lot of times you're not even dependent. It depends on who you're talking to. So I don't want it to seem like every single person that follows Kent Hovind is a conspiracy theorist and but when we're talking about people who follow the videos that I debunk, it is a lot of that. And a lot of them are not, it's not even about the facts. Humans like unlocking puzzles. They like, it's the emotion, it's emotional. So getting them out of that is a lot of, okay, what is missing? What is this? What need is this feeding?
Mhm.
Because we've got to like drive into that before we start talking about why this is wrong. Um, because like if I'm lacking something, I'm going to look to fill it, and that's a huge problem with a lot of people when they're trying to get. Why a lot of people find that it's hard to get people out of whether it's QAnon or whatever the thing is. Um, they're trying to combine an emotional whole, combat, sorry, an emotional whole with facts. And we know that, just God, 100 years of one, propaganda research, and two, media research. People don't care about facts. They'd rather be told a beautiful lie than, uh, one of the ones was back in the 1920s, shortly after women's suffrage was passed, and women were looking for, we're feeling, like free and, I empowered. And the tobacco companies just trying to sell cigarettes started telling them, well, if you want to be on equal footing with a man, men smoke. You should, buy these
Yeah.
cigarettes,
So it's like,
and that, you're going to be, yeah, now you're going to be equal, or now you're going to, you're going to be liberated and empowered, and you're going to,
yeah.
no separation of the sexes, and da 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 da, and that worked. And I'm selling it badly because I'm trying to remember exactly what the pitch was, but it was like,
Be right. You're equal now. We want to
yeah,
keep pushing that. Here's another way you can be equal. So it plays
yeah,
into
and
this pre-existing, whether
this.
you want to call it a bias, an emotional need, a political desire, whatever it is, it plays into that pre-existing thing. It's not rewiring so much as taking advantage of
Mhm.
existing wiring. And
Yes. And a lot of that is like, yeah, that a lot of that is propaganda, especially in QAnon.
yeah.
Like, you can't say that, a QAnoner believes X, because there's just so much stuff on 4chan, and they pick and choose what they want to believe.
Mhm. And
Sorry, you can.
on the topic of QAnon, I just read a fantastic book on this, and then I will get to the super chat that I see. Thank you. Um, I just read a fantastic book on this called The Quiet Damage, and it's the story of several different families where someone falls into QAnon, and then the years, kind of how that happened, and the effects of it, and the alienation, and the this and that. And so much of it is what you were just talking about,
Mhm.
where it plays into a pre-existing mindset where there was one of the people in the book had gotten an erroneous cancer diagnosis. So they got a very serious diagnosis.
Mhm.
And then it turned out months later, after going through a round of chemotherapy and like exploratory surgery and everything, turns out they didn't have cancer. It was an incorrect diagnosis. Now that primed them to then buy into a bunch of like medical misinformation, right? Because they had this now pre-existing distrust, and
Yeah.
now you've got along comes this conspiracy theory that also played into like COVID and anti-vaxxer stuff, right? And it wasn't a new thing they had to be convinced of. It built on
Mhm.
a suspicion they already had, right? And
Yeah.
not only did it build on it, it provided an explanation for it. And all of
Mhm.
a sudden, that terrible thing that happened to them, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't a mistake, it was a purposeful plot, right? It was part of
Right.
this nefarious plan, right? So now there's a reason for what happened to you. That's a powerful motivator, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
dive into it and you talk about unmet emotional needs and everything. You're going to have this whole community that's going to welcome you with open
Hmm.
arms, right?
Hmm.
And it functions like a cult because once you're
Yes.
in, one, you're alienated from everybody else in your life, and two, there's a social cost to leaving because then you lose
Right.
access to that
Hmm.
connection. And this is why, as you described a few minutes ago, it's not just one conspiracy theory, it's not just one pseudoscientific belief, it's a whole bunch of them because they all function in fundamentally the same way.
Yeah.
So you get this, talk about like, historically the domino theory was wrong with like communism. But when it comes to like pseudoscience and conspiracy theories, domino theory is basically correct. Like once you crack open that door, start
Hmm.
going, it is a slippery slope. You're just going to tumble down that slope. So
Yeah. And it's
want to just get to the
also,
super
yeah,
chat
I
real
just
fast.
want
Hang
it
on a
for,
sec.
oh,
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I forgot. And I also did want to just reiterate to people who maybe, with people who are not listening to the facts on a matter. A lot of times, depending on where they are, it's not about the facts. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually, or if somebody is non-responsive to facts, that means there's an emotional component. Leave the facts alone. You're gonna
Right
other
there.
yourself. Feelings don't care about your facts.
That is
100%.
That is like, and like science background, like just give me data. Like you want to convince me of
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
just show me data. And I've changed my
Same,
mind on various things like,
same.
oh, okay. And this is a powerful thing. And like scientists are not immune to this. You come up with a hypothesis, you get some support for that hypothesis,
Mhm.
you want to change your mind, right? I like my hypothesis. I don't want to change my mind. Don't tell me I'm wrong. I'm going to find a way to rationalize keeping that belief because it makes me feel good. And that's how all sorts of beliefs work.
It's a little more than that. I mean, you're not wrong, but at that point, it's usually you've wrapped it into yourself, like it's a part of you.
Identity.
Yes. And attacking that is therefore attacking me.
Mhm.
I can't let go of it because I'm letting go of me. And so that's why I tell people a lot. I'm like, okay, if facts aren't working, you got to try something else. Because especially everybody I'm sure in your community is thinking, oh my God, like this is just wrong. It's just like the world is visibly round. They have community that, even if they're starting to wonder, is the earth really round? Me saying that or believing that is going to take me out of my community. My friends are all here.
Yeah.
What
It's
am I going
so
to do?
the thing that got me to like understand this was something that kept happening is when it was specifically with climate change, and what kept happening was I would be like trying to explain how like feedback loops work with the heating of the atmosphere and the amount of carbon, da, 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 da. And the response I kept getting, despite like just like literally showing graphs, was, why are you attacking me? I'm not attacking you. I'm showing like this. These are numbers. These are data. I'm
Yeah.
not attacking
Yep.
you. But if that belief is part of your identity, then
Right.
being contrary to the belief is a personal attack. There's no
Yes.
way to disentangle those two
No.
things.
Nope.
So you have to find another approach to do it.
Not there.
And like it took me so many years to realize that was the case. But it was like it's like that little just tweak that way of looking at things and it makes these conversations a lot easier. It makes it easier to
Hmm.
understand like how the stuff that we're dealing with works and what
Hmm.
approaches are going to work and what approaches are not going to work. Because,
Right.
you know, if if I attack your identity, you know what? People with long hair, like they suck. Okay. People, you know what it is? This is the only correct way to go through life. They're like,
Yep.
I'm never going to convince you to like cut your hair because I'm attacking you as a bad person. And for a lot of the beliefs that we're talking about here, whether it's QAnon or creationism or whatever, it's
Hmm.
such a part of the identity that
Yes.
if you just provide data that shows the world is 4 billion years old, 4.5 billion years old, that is a personal attack.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's not going to matter. It's just going to, nope. Don't hear it. Don't. You're attacking me. That's not going to convince me of anything. I need to get to this super chat.
Yes.
It's all the way up here. Hang on. I got to over here. So I wanted to, this right here is so critical to all of this, and everybody needs to understand this.
Yes.
Everybody in the skeptical space needs to understand this, that as we're trying to do communication, you have to always be considering what your target audience is feeling and like how they view the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just give a litany of facts. That won't work. Because if the
won't always work, because if the thing you're trying to convince people is not true, is an intrinsic part of their identity, they're not going to be open to like data, because that will be perceived as a personal attack against part of their identity. And so we have to find other ways of approaching this conversation that's going to allow that door to open. And that is so important. So important. Yeah. Get to this because I want to.
For 1999, again, you, Rosanna, it's so generous of you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Apophenia is married to the gambler's fallacy. So I do not. What is apophenia? I do not know what that word means. Does anybody know what that? I'm going to look it up. I do not know that word. A tendency to perceive a connection or meaningful pattern between unrelated or random things. There you go. Exactly what you were talking about.
I think it is the gambler's fallacy.
That's pretty much, yeah. All right. And thank you again for your generosity. You don't have to be doing that. You don't have to, but thank you. I appreciate it. All right, Maya, you had something you wanted to say just a second ago before I went to that chat.
Yeah, ADHD brain. But there's another piece of it that I wanted to. Wait, what were we talking about? We were talking about how things are.
Feelings don't care about your facts, and you have to, with the audience.
Othering. So another thing that, and again, I'm not just like, this isn't like anecdotal stuff from me, like trolling trolls on Twitter, which is fun for me, honestly. A lot of people say it's like, oh, I hate Twitter. There's nothing but evil people there. I think people go into Twitter expecting it to be mean, but like, the easiest way to make somebody feel like a dick is to be nice to them on Twitter.
Yep.
Completely takes them off guard.
Just be nice. Just be nice.
It is so funny. That aside, like everything I'm saying, I'm is from like data that I've, that psychologists who study this stuff is saying, and I'm, again, try not to get into one. My ADHD does not let me get in too many like details. So I'm not going to say, well, Smith and Smith in 1970. I don't do that. I read stuff and I remember details. My brain doesn't do numbers and names. It's, I'm sorry, but I haven't said anything. I don't think I've said anything that's just like anecdotal evidence. I'm trying to. I was a psych major. My major was behavioral psychology. A lot of stuff I get from like books I read a while ago, and a lot of stuff like I don't know. It's fun for me. I like to read about psychology. And since Trump got into office, my interest has really been in the psychology of cults and conspiracy theorists, because I'm just like, why? This makes no sense to me. So counterintuitive to me as a person. Because again, when I went down the conspiracy theorists, like I was gung-ho, like, yeah, the moon is fake. And it was the facts that brought me out of it. So like this whole thing, it totally came out, not I can't relate to it at all. But if you have a loved one or a friend or, whatever, that you're trying to talk out of a bad belief, the best way to do that is to try to find something that you can agree on. I notice that a lot of people want to set themselves apart. I'm not you. I'm better than you. I have this knowledge. You should listen to me. And you've got to get out of that. You have to, you really do have to go get to their level, and some, not necessarily the flat earth level. hey, we're both Army vets. Hey, I was also I don't know, in I don't know, this club, or I I too am a
Any
Catholic,
just
whatever,
any old thing,
anything,
you gotta find
something that you can
something.
relate to them
Yep.
to, because they've got to feel like we are the same. And if someone like me can think this way, that gives me the freedom to embrace the thought or idea.
Yes.
They will not take anything in if you're an other. And the reason is they've already othered you. Like it we're brainwashed, right? We are supposed to think that. We're supposed to say that. You're playing into their preconceived notions um by not doing that. They have to see you as an equal, and then you can start to you can
Start.
start you can plant seeds.
Yeah.
But
This
again, don't think that you're going to change minds in a conversation. My goal is always, what can we agree on? And we start there. And then next conversation, we build on that. Well, last time we agreed this. All right. So taking that as a base, what now can we agree on? It's a path. And I know I cut you off, but real quick, for
No,
those
no,
of
no,
you
go
who've
ahead,
seen,
please.
oh, he does a thing with Prophet Azad. Dan from Truth Wanted. He talks about, he actually had a really quick deconversion, where I think he said it was like a year from the time that he was like, what do you mean Christianity could be false? To the point where he was identifying as an atheist. And again, even when he was just like, what? That's weird. I'll look into it. Still took a whole year of him just being honest and open, and engaging with the information. Yeah, subjectively, Dan. Thank you, Icarus and Hollyhock. But I, I really, like, a lot of people I hear in the community a lot of people saying, oh, we can't change minds, we can't, this, that, or the other. You can't do it the way that it happened for you. Um, People are different. And there are enough similarities to where we've been able to say, okay, these are the things that are holding a lot of people back, and you can narrow it down. But you still have to figure out where the person you're talking to is in that spectrum,
Yeah.
and work with them where they're at. And it's hard, and it's frustrating. It's going to take a lot of your patience, and you have to be dedicated to it. And if you can't do
Yep.
it, just walk away, because you staying there and belaboring the point is doing more harm than good.
Yeah. So much of what you are talking about here is in that book, The Quiet Damage. So much of it, the psychology of it, the like how it really has to be a one-on-one dedicated process. There's one particular example there where it's an older woman and her adult son is trying to like pull her out of QAnon, and it's a years long kind of thing that he embarks on to try to do this. And the other thing I want to point out here is you kind of brought us back to where we started, 50 minutes ago, with the idea of Trump kind of uprooting everything by providing permission structure for people to just be awful in public openly. What a lot of what we have to do is provide the social permission structure for people to come back,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you're like you said, you're never going to do that if you start as we are different, othering. That's never going, at that point they're going to close off listening to you. It's not going to
Yes.
happen.
Right.
So you have to start with the similarities, and oh, they're okay, they were, like you said, they were in the army, in this club, have this hobby, whatever it is. Oh, they're okay, they do this thing that I do. Maybe there's other things we have in common, and you can kind of build up from that foundation. But if you don't start with that some degree of connection, then
Mhm.
there's no way to do it, because there's no permission being built in that
Right.
allows them to take that first step, right? And then the other thing that goes back to what we talked about, that you talked about super clearly, and I'm going to go back and watch it for myself later at some point, when you were talking about very purposefully having guests, picking topics, talking about things in a very specific way, because when you're doing this publicly, right, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a mother who's gone down the QAnon rabbit hole and her son trying to get her out of it. People like you, people like me, we're doing this on public, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
internet is forever. So it's a three-way conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's me, it's the person I'm talking to, and it's everybody else. So you talk about othering and providing a permission structure. We also have to be cognizant of doing that for the audience. So if
Yes.
there's some commonality there, some bridge we can build in that direction, like I said before, I'm never going to convince, Michael Behe or whatever to like not be a creationist, right? That's never going to happen. But if I can make some connection with the audience,
Right.
it's providing that structure for them to start kind of looking in different directions. Like you talked about seeing the debate between the
Mm-hmm.
expert and the rando and going, hey,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, what's going on here? Right. You have to, it's a lot of balls in the air, right? Trying to have these conversations. It's not just, if only it were so easy, you just get up there and be like, facts. Thank you very much. Everybody is convinced. And, the clouds part and the beam of light comes down and everybody agrees with you, right?
Which would be nice.
Which would be nice, but we can't do it that way.
Never really seen that happen, or
Nope.
like when it does, it's usually you were, you watered it and you got to see the flower poke through the soil, first. It wasn't like, that you had this godly conversation where you brought this person to Christ. But no, I love this conversation. It's kind of let me geek out. I don't get to do my psychology geek out.
No,
Really
this is great.
often.
I'm digging it. And it's so you're talking about going down, all this, the cults and these beliefs and how people get in and how people get out. This is like a hobby of mine. It's no more than a hobby of mine, but like
Mhm.
I read, like I have a list of these books that I've read.
Oh, wow.
There's two QAnon books, Trust the Plan and The Storm is Upon Us.
Oh, wow.
There's Antisocial was a really good one.
Mhm.
Culture Warlords, White
Oh, wow.
American Youth.
Oh,
The
that
Quiet
sounds interesting.
White American Youth was about a neo-Nazi kid. It was written by a neo-Nazi kid in like Chicago, I think, and
Okay.
basically got in and then got out. It's a pretty quick read too. There's so many if I pull up my book list, and like like It Came from Something Awful, which is about like the history of 4chan and 8chan and all that stuff.
That's probably I hate books. I say I hate books, but like they take so long to read, and I'm really big on reading like articles, like the what studies are coming out.
Yeah.
I need to know, like I read like the journal articles, like they're like news articles or whatever, and because I need to know what's new, what's latest, and it's just the way my brain is wired. But I do like looking into the history of things, so books are way better for that.
Yeah, you see the and then kind of connected to all of this, there's this whole like kind of whole milieu of cultural stuff starting in like the 60s and kind of coming out of the civil rights movement, this whole reactionary
Mhm.
thing, that there's a straight line from like old school guys like it was Rushdoony was one of the guys way back then, and the Nixon's silent majority into the Reagan stuff, and the school segregation leading to the emphasis on religious schools and how like abortion was taken up as kind of a states' rights stand-in for segregation once they lost the segregation fight, right?
Right.
And all these things go together. So you have to follow this history looking at like the religious right and how that's, so there's a couple of really great books on that. There's the Power Worshippers, there's Jesus and John Wayne is a really good one.
Jesus and John Wayne.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. It's about right-wing Christian kind of politics and how it's connected to masculinity and extremely toxic masculinity in right-wing US politics. Is a really good read.
I could probably do a stream talking to you about that.
I mean, we talk about conspiracy theories, right? And when you describe these things, having read all of these books, and I'm like, if I went to my list of books, there's probably about a dozen or maybe 15 books like in this weird rabbit hole that I've read. and and they're all, I've read all of the Duggar books. Every book a member of that family has put out, I have read every one of them
Why?
because I am obsessed with this stuff.
That is
And
interesting.
but then like one of the daughters like got out, so like that's a whole thing.
So what are their books about? Like I would just think it'd be like Jesus-y, like read this book because
There's
I need money.
the ones by the parents are about like Christian parenting, and they have really weird euphemisms for beating your children. It's really creepy once you learn to read between the lines. It's really creepy. The four oldest daughters have the creepiest book of all, though. It's about like relationships and how they don't do dating. They do this courtship thing, and the dads have to like sign off. It's creepy AF.
God.
It's like, yeah, that one, I forget what that one is called, but the one, and then one of the older daughters is the one that was like, I'm so done with this. And like, so she and her husband wrote a book that like, we are out. This is not cool. That was emotionally, physically abusive. That was not okay. Yeah, but then there's a bunch of like related books to that. So like just recently, last year, I think, a book called The Ex-Evangelicals came out. So it's kind of from the other side of it. It's people leaving that type of right-wing Christianity.
Yeah.
And I just finished another one called Pure, which is about specifically like the sexual purity thing and like the effects of that. And that book was more academic than I expected. It was very dry in terms of like the structure of it. But it had a lot of really interesting information in terms of the history of where kind of these different threads come from. So my point in this rambly thing is that we talk about conspiracy theories. You read all this stuff, you see how it all intertwines. It sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory. But like
yeah, but
like it really sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, but it is all connected
it
in
is,
terms of
yeah.
this overarching project, this reactionary political project.
Yeah. It yeah, I could talk about like Christianity, how, and it's not even just people want to blame it on Christianity, and it's not. There are, and I know this sounds kind of conspiracy theory-ish, where it's like this evil cabal of like evil old white men, but like it is more of like the top 1% trying to influence and hoard cash by keeping people poor, uneducated, and in this certain structure so that they keep contributing to the machine. And this is life, I guess. But and the whole toxic masculinity thing, and it's just more of that. And as I know that I don't know, they're trying really hard to make feminism a bad word, but as a feminist, you should believe that the sexes are equal and that masculinity isn't inherently toxic, and holding to this unnatural structure of what manhood is toxic to all men in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's bad for men. It's like men watching this, you can like have emotions and be emotionally available to people, and like your spouse or your significant other, and also your other, like your male friends. Like that is okay. You can you can express affection for your children. That is a good thing to do. You know it's a good thing to do? Therapy. Go to therapy. It's good.
Go to therapy, please.
Talk to somebody. Like, shouldn't be a stigma there. Come on, people. Like, it's fine. It's like, yeah.
But it all, and a lot of it even too, like the way it bleeds into a lot of these conspiracy theories, where there's people, it's just like, well, I don't like the way the world is. And, it's really interesting when you look at what people do. And I have seen this anecdotally in my own life, where when people don't have the information, like they see something, but they don't know how they got there. And then we're not really teaching people how to research. Like I remember having this conversation with somebody else, and I'm like, even in college, like we, so back in my day, we didn't all have the internet. So there was this thing called a library, and that's where you got the internet. And there would be a, college catalog in the computer, and all that you could all the sources were valid. So as long as you got all of your sources from the college catalog, you knew that you had valid sources, and the teacher had to do less. So it's win-win. So like, and even God, when I got my master's degree, it was like my master's degree I got online, but we still had that college catalog, and this is where these are where your sources are. These are where your valid sources are, and I kind of wish I had that back because like a lot of like the peer-reviewed stuff that you just can't get as a layperson was all in there. I do miss it, but. And I hate that a lot of that stuff is behind a paywall because I
It's
have
so
arguments
bad.
with people right now where I'm just like, I learned about this in college and it's behind a paywall. I can't just like say, here's a link.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating.
That should
But then
be
too,
should be illegal.
I'm just saying though, but then also, what do you call it? You don't show people how to get valid information when it's just go over here and you can pick from anything. It's not telling you, I don't think people don't really think, oh, I don't see Breitbart in here and I don't see, Newsmax or, whatever. You don't put two and two together.
Right. Maybe there's a reason why you won't find those sources in these curated places, right? You have,
Right.
when you have to clear a bar to have your information in a certain place, that's necessarily going to weed out unreliable sources. And then
sorry,
go ahead, go take it from there.
Well, and then also with the what I've noticed about the news is a lot of reputable places are now hiding even just basic news behind a paywall. Not even just the science, like basic news anymore, with the decline of like the physical newspapers. And I understand that they need to make a buck, but you don't see Breitbart or Newsmax hiding their misinformation behind a paywall.
Because going back to what we talked about before, it's not about informing people. It's propaganda. It is part of a political agenda, and that agenda is not informing the public about reality.
Exactly.
And in fact, their bread and butter is misleading people because that whole, slice there benefits politically from that. Right. So that's like, there's kind of two sides of this that we're pushing back against. There's like, I don't want to call it like the good faith, but like the kind of, there's the chaotic neutral, and then there's the chaotic evil. Right. And like the chaotic neutral is just like, YouTube is the Wild West and any old crazy beliefs are going to be out there. But then you've got the chaotic evil that it's like, all the right-wing propaganda that gets out there with a specific political goal of making you afraid, making you think that prices are higher than they were when they're actually lower than they were when you look at how like incomes have right? People just lying, just straight up lying about these things. Like just, again, two columns of numbers, which one is higher? And they'll just tell you the wrong thing with the goal of misleading you for a political reason. And like that, pushing back on that is a completely different project than trying to get the potential flat earther to see your video instead of the flat earth video that's going to get them down that rabbit hole, right? Those are two separate forces you're pushing against, and it requires a different approach because one of them, you got to be a little gentler. The other one, you have to be like, that is a lie. This person is lying to you for this reason.
Right.
And like, in terms of finding that right balance, it gets really challenging when, like, again, my bread and butter here is creationism, where they are lying to you for this specific political reason, right? There's, the young earth creationist organizations are completely 100%. The Venn diagram is a circle with Christian nationalists. The current Speaker of the House of Representatives has an author page on the Answers in Genesis website. Like that, it is the same project. So they are lying to you. But also, someone might Google something about evolution and stumble upon some creationist nonsense. And you got to catch both of those things. Man, it's really hard. And and here's where I want to bring this. And I think, because we've been going for about 80 minutes, so I don't want to keep you all night. And your approach is both, I think, very effective for that, and also somewhat unique in that you do a really good job balancing this is dangerous and bad, and here's how it's wrong, but also, hey, everybody, isn't this kind of silly? Like, isn't it better to just like agree on reality? Here's a bunch of stuff we can agree on that's not debatable at all. And like, let's just start there.
Well,
And
yeah, thank you.
finding that balance is tough.
Well, it
But
helps
that's
when
what
you got to
we
have
need
a
to do,
great
right?
co-host and you banter well. Um, but yeah, and a lot of it is like very purposeful, where we laugh at Nazis. I personally won't talk to them. They're not worth speaking to. I'm not going to sit down and have a conversation like my rights are debatable.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's reprehensible. Someone has to do it. I do believe that, but for me, I can't sit down and have a conversation, not even about my own rights, like why me as a woman should get to vote, or be allowed to save my own life with a life-saving medical treatment, even if it kills a baby, or why my trans friends shouldn't have equal rights, my gay friends shouldn't get married, why my Jewish friends like should be able to live. I'm not like it's just
Not
crazy to me.
folks,
Like
just to be clear, we're not exaggerating. These are all things that these people think. Like,
yeah. And I'm not. For me, it's an absurd conversation that I can't have. But the conversation is being had. So for people who can tolerate it, the Mark Reeds of the world,
power to you.
I'm not going to stand in their way, because somebody has to combat this. They have to hear the other side. They have to hear, because like a lot of it is like they're just getting flushed with, Tucker Carlson, or whoever replaced him, and Ben Shapiro, and Andrew Tate, or whoever else.
Andrew Tate, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and they need those debates are the only time they're ever exposed outside of their echo chamber. Following those people out to the outside world, to daylight, is the only time that we're really going to have the opportunity to combat any of the information, that they're ever going to really hear the truth, that they're ever going to really hear. No, we don't want to just kill babies. That's not fun for us. We're actually fighting for women's rights, to control their own life. It still like stymies me that people really believe people when they say they just want to kill babies. Why?
Yeah, it's
Why would you think that? But they do, and they
nonsensical.
need to hear. They need to hear that we don't. And I'm not able to have that conversation. But what I am able to do is take their videos, dissect it, and say, okay, I'm not going to talk to them, but I am going to dissect their views, and we're going to laugh at it because it's laughable. And we're not. I mean, why would you take this seriously? This isn't a serious thing. They're not taking themselves seriously. Why should I? I'm not going to pretend like this is that this is serious. And you also have to know your audience, right? I mean, I could be very serious about it, and there's a lot of people that are. But for me, I have an audience who isn't really into like politics and the serious stuff like that. They come here because they are looking for the silly and the goofy things, and it's kind of I feel like it's a service I'm doing to society to capture those people who, like, well, the news is boring. All right. Well, let's dress it up,
Yeah.
and so you still get you still hear the propaganda. You can still it's like, hey, Maya said that was a dog whistle. Is that a Nazi? It
Mhm.
to like the things that they wouldn't be inclined to listen to get the information, they can get through me. That's what I hope to do with a lot of what I do on my show.
That is the perfect way to wrap this up. Couldn't have said that better. That was the perfect explanation. I love it. That's exactly why we need to be doing these things. And especially that point about the only time these people get dragged into the sunlight is when they're these people that they idolize step outside the echo chamber for a debate. So it has to be something there engaging them, but we have to be
Yes.
purposeful about who that is and why it is those people. Yes, I
Yes.
just co-sign every little bit of that, and just yes, that is great explanation. Thank you, Maya Adkisson, for spending this time here with us tonight. Everybody, before we call it a night, I want you to go down in the description, click that link to Maya's channel, and hit the subscribe button, because we want to get those numbers up. So we've got a handful of you have already done it since we started talking. So nice job, everybody. Let's get some more people doing it, because Maya should have a much larger audience. She's doing great work over there, and I will say, in a extremely conscientious way, right? Like, a lot of people just like go on YouTube and just like spout off. Maya is thinking really hard about what we're doing here, and that should be rewarded, and people should be kind of funneled in her direction, for all the reasons she just outlined in that excellent summary, which I cannot top that. So Maya, do you have any last thoughts? Tell us what's coming up on your channel. Any guests you have lined up, any topics we're going to hear about in the next few Sundays? What do you have coming down the pike?
This Sunday, I have actually in your chat, I believe, is still Hive Size. She will be on with Vandalia 1998. And we're going to debunk mud fossils.
Classic.
Yeah. Roger has, I want to say, he hit over 200,000 subs, and I don't know. So part of me is just like, maybe one of them will look for Roger and he'll see me. And and another part of me is just like, man, let this be 200,000 hate watchers.
Yeah, there you go. You know what?
This is just silly to take seriously.
Yeah. And look, you get a bunch of those hate watchers, and not zero of them are going to be like, hey, wait a minute. Now hang on just a minute. And then they won't be hate watchers anymore.
But I do see Dapper Dino, Dapper Dinosaur in your chat. He will be on in September. And we also have Professor Parks, who will be on in September. And Dr. Kip Davis will also be on in September.
Great.
So it'll be a great, I hope everybody comes through, because we're going to have a great lineup of a lot of experts. And we do try to showcase videos that show off their talents, so that we're doing a service both to the guests. I don't want them sitting here like, I do creation science. Why are we talking about black holes?
Yeah, that'd be hard.
But also, and you did an awesome job. Still one of my highest watched videos this year. And
thank you.
Everyone loved it. It was
super fun. It was, you gave me a lot of room to just like, can I take 5 minutes to just nerd out about this random thing in biology? And it was fun. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, and I got a lot of comments that it was fun and they learned a lot. And
that's what we want.
It is the highest form of flattery to me to hear that.
On and learn a lot. That's what we're always going for. I love it.
Yeah. And so, it's going to be a lot of that coming up with a lot of great experts. So
awesome.
Folks,
hope
to see you guys all there.
The channel is Maya Adkisson. It's linked down in the description. You know where to find it. Bad Science Sunday. It's exactly what it sounds like. Sunday nights, we're talking about bad science. Before we get out of here, I just have a quick super chat here that I missed from Hillhugger. I'm a +1 if Dr. Dan wants to start up Project Dan. There are a bunch of Dans. We should all coalesce.
Popular name.
Omega Dan. There were 4 Dans in my high school biology class.
Whoa.
Too many Dans. Way too many.
It's a great name.
Just a lot of us running around. Here on Creation Myths, I have some really fun stuff coming up. So next week, this 9 p.m. Eastern, next Wednesday, that's September 4th, is I'm gonna have a really fun panel talking about a Creation Ministries International article, CMI, that is my favorite thing they've put out all year, in which it's an article and a video in which these young Earth creationists talk about how to spot a conspiracy theory and why people shouldn't believe things like flat Earth. And it just, folks, the call is coming from inside the house on that one. Okay. So that's going to be next week. We're going to have Maddie from Science Side Up is going to be back. She was just here last week to talk about answers in Genesis. She's going to be back for that one. Grayson was here. Grayson Hawk, he was in the chat. He's going to be here for that one. And Erica Gutsa-Gibbon is going to be joining us for that one. So it's going to be a really fun show. Really great group of people. We're going to kind of talk about what we're a little bit of what we talked about tonight. Like, we're going to laugh at CMI a lot for like teaching their audience a giant conspiracy theory and then getting upset when their audience believes conspiracy theories. So that's what we're doing.
Did you put out like Erica treats and then like grab her with the sack when she like?
This is I put out the feelers for this one like months ago. It's just like, this article is hilarious. Who wants in? And Erica's one of the people who wanted to dunk on CMI. So like, let's do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen her. Since she's been doing her PhD. It's just been crazy trying to find her online, even on her own channel. So congrats to you.
Look, you get to that stage in your PhD, you are you're burrowed in there. Oh yeah. So then I have then I'll be rebroadcasting. Mr. Anderson was here. I don't know if he's still here, but Mr. Anderson was here. I'll be rebroadcasting conversation I had with him a while back on debate tactics, looking at my debate earlier this year with Dr. Casey Luskin from Discovery Institute. And then so that'll be on September 11th. And on the 18th, I'm really excited for this one. Dr. Jay Bundy is going to come on, and we are going to chat. We share an interest in graphics in science communication. There's an author who does like graphic design stuff, and we appreciate this author, Edward Tofty. And so we are going to talk about how to communicate well graphically in science. And to illustrate this, we're going to pick some of our favorite terrible creationist figures and show not just why they're wrong, but also why they do a terrible job visually conveying the information they're trying to convey. So I'm really excited for that one. It's going to be graphic design nerdery, but also anti-creationism. And that's going to be on September 18th with Dr. Jay Bundy. So that's what I have coming down the pike. And I think that is it for us tonight. So Maya, you're vanishing, but we're going to be out of here in just a second here.
Sorry, so I was just talking to somebody. Sorry, I'm here.
I want to just I thought your connection was going bad or something. Mm-hmm. I just once again want to thank you for being here. I had a ton of fun.
So much for inviting me.
Really fun
this
conversation.
Is awesome.
Everybody that's watching, thank you for being here. Please hit like. Please go subscribe to Maya's channel and hang out for Bad Science Sunday. And everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next week. Have a great night, everybody.